In a world where truth and morality often seem up for debate, there's a man whose life and legacy continue to challenge us today. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. A pastor, theologian, and martyr, Bonhoeffer's unwavering faith led him to stand against the tide of Nazi ideology and resist the oppressive forces of his time. But what can we, living in a very different age, learn from him? In today's world where secularism, relativism, and social pressures abound, Bonhoeffer's life offers a powerful example of courage, conviction, and the pursuit of truth. In this video, we'll explore how his theological insights and his actions, both in resistance to evil and in the face of suffering, can inspire us to stand firm in our faith and be bold witnesses for truth, no matter the cost. Stay tuned until the end. If this is your first time here, please make sure and hit the subscribe button so that you never miss a video or an interview. Our goal is to help you enter into a confirmed, confident, and eternal relationship with the source of all life and purpose. Today, we're diving into the life and legacy of a man who lived with a fierce commitment to his faith, even in the face of extreme opposition, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. A German pastor, theologian, and anti-Nazi dissident, Bonhoeffer's life challenges us to think deeply about what it means to truly follow Christ in a world filled with suffering, injustice, and temptation. His writings, especially on discipleship and the cost of following Jesus, continue to resonate with believers today. So what can we learn from Dietrich Bonhoeffer for our modern world? How can his example shape the way we live out our faith in the 21st century? Let's explore how this courageous servant of God continues to inspire us to stand firm, live with purpose, and follow Jesus no matter the cost. As long as there have been humans living in groups, there have been conflicts. At times, this conflict has escalated to the level of the Holocaust or other wars. Without guidance, individuals and countries alike can and have ventured into disappointing methods of diffusing conflicts. Theologians have at times given humanity and the church specifically the tools and means to navigate difficulties present in modern society. That being said, it is not an option for the Christian to retreat from society, because nowhere is Christ more visible than in how his church responds to conflict and those negatively impacted by it. Scripture has also made it clear that although there should be a marked difference in how the Christian lives in the world, he or she is not of the world. When the church, who in practicality is the people, do not actively exhibit what it means to be Christ-like in every facet of society, gaps are formed that the world eventually fills. The modern rise of atheism can be largely traced to the disengagement of Christians due to the privatization of their religious lives. Much can be learned from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who attempted to rouse Christians to be vocal about their beliefs and active because of those beliefs. In response to the church's tangible detachment from society, Dietrich Bonhoeffer promoted Christian engagement with the increasingly secular world. Bonhoeffer was able to centralize the indispensable message contained within the gospel by removing the external enclosures in which some had tried and do try to contain it. In examining Erich Metaxas's biography of Bonhoeffer, Duff notes, Metaxas betrays one of the most enduring qualities of Bonhoeffer's theology, that it attracts and challenges a broad spectrum of Christian readers from theologically liberal to theologically conservative by claiming Bonhoeffer for conservative evangelicals alone. Regardless of one's political alignment or theological bent, it is clear that those presuppositions were not of great concern to Bonhoeffer. His focus was Christ and action. A confident Christian should be an active Christian, undeterred by societal pressures and unhindered by an overwhelming allegiance to religious rituals. Many theologians have attempted to illuminate the proper balance between what Christ has already done and what he calls his church to continue doing. In attempting to find the balance between detachment from the world in order to safeguard against an erosion of spirituality and an evangelistic engagement with the world, some have landed too far on either end of the pendulum. Knight writes, Protestants especially have, at times, struggled to articulate the significance of the daily work of Christian life alongside the decisive and finished work of Christ. Questions of divine and human agency, formation, and practice all recur here, no matter how far they had receded before the polemics of justification against a latent Pelagianism. And failure to attend to the gap between salvation as divine act and as daily passage can unwittingly tend toward cheapened grace, static spirituality, and threadbare accounts of sanctification. Bonhoeffer sought to integrate the variety of focal points present within Protestantism. For Bonhoeffer, this was not an either-or ideology, but a both-and philosophy. In outlining this religionless Christianity, Bonhoeffer was seeking to remove the weight of unnecessary dogma, if it presented itself, in order to present Christ to the world. Olson notes, he rejected as unfaithful to the gospel any striving for detached, disengaged piety that viewed Christians as above or better than the rest of humanity. Therefore, in Knight's analysis of how Bonhoeffer addressed the issue of the inward and outward balance each Christian needs to possess something else, he writes, Bonhoeffer's advocacy of a committed and distinctive form of Christian piety required the discipline of prayer, confession, worship, and the regular study of the Bible within the fellowship of the church. Yet, the ecclesial formation of the Christian was oriented toward the world. Bonhoeffer sought to reattach a detached church from a secular world in a tangible way, which was reeling from the effects of war and Nazism. His writings with such a high Christology reflect his devotion to the Christian message and highlight the potential of the church's impact on society. On June 19, 1932, Bonhoeffer preached a sermon in which he said, "You may suspect that those who are constantly seeking things above may lose contact with the ground under their feet. If he reaches up and raises his head to touch the stars, then his unsure feet will have no foothold, and he will be the plaything of clouds and wind. No matter how the individual feels about it, human society suspects with good reason that people with their heads in the clouds like that might be useless extra mouths to feed, instead of using burning hearts and a strong arm to create order and progress here on earth. That they would dream of a better afterlife and would be unfit for the great revolutionary action that each generation must take, smashing old tablets and setting up new and better ones." It has been said that sometimes a Christian can be so heavenly minded that he's no earthly good. Bonhoeffer sought to reduce that possibility by calling for the Christian not to get stuck in the clouds, but to be present amongst the people. Olson writes, according to Lyotard, postmodernism is incredulity towards meta-narratives. Although Bonhoeffer was addressing the influence of modernity and secularism prevalent in his day, his theology is abundantly relevant in the present postmodern culture. Perhaps being overwhelmed with the range of options presented as well as the various mediums through which people view those opinions and ideologies, i.e. television, YouTube, social media, etc., many have become numb to the idea of truth. It is also possible that many are not able to separate the propositions contained within a particular worldview with the actions of the practitioners of that worldview. With regards to Christianity, it is sadly a fact that at times Christians behave in a less than Christ-like manner. However, this should not dissuade one from adopting the principles of Christianity or from coming to know the person of Jesus Christ in a salvific way. It seems then that one primary manner through which the postmodern non-religious individual might come to know Jesus is through a relational engagement with him. It is in this way that Bonhoeffer's theology is extremely relevant to today's theologians and to today's church. Regarding the issue of how the Christian today can attract her friend to know Jesus in spite of her own shortcomings or the church more broadly, Bonhoeffer offers the following directive. He writes, strict exercise of self-control is an essential feature of the Christian's life. It does matter how one lives. Words are often not heard until their truth value is first felt. In other words, the Christian in a postmodern world needs to demonstrate by way of love, service, and devotion what it looks like and what costs he gladly accepts in his service to Christ. This will affirm to the non-Christian that Christianity is not another meta-narrative to be thoughtlessly lumped in with the others. It is a lifestyle in relationship with the truth and is therefore the means through which the truth in love is manifested. Bonhoeffer goes on to say, "As brother stands by brother in distress, binding up his wounds and soothing his pain, so let us show our love towards our enemy. There is no deeper distress to be found in the world, no pain more bitter than our enemies. Nowhere is service more necessary or more blessed than when we serve our enemies." This is a Christian reality that is difficult to perfect, but that does not disavow the implications of this sentiment. If one assumes that truth is relative, which is common in a postmodern world, this notion can only be proven false when an intellectual response is combined with an existential response. In other words, mere facts will often not be enough to convince a skeptic that he should alter his worldview. However, existential experience, which is lived in relationship with someone of another worldview, will often do more to shift the mind of one whose heart has been impacted by another individual. By engaging in all areas of influence within the society, the Christian can increase the truth value of the gospel message. Communication is not just verbal, but it is also visible. However, such engagement can pose a risk to a Christian, and it introduces the potential for frustration and heartbreak. But no one knew this better than Bonhoeffer himself, who paid with his life by being hanged after being accused of conspiring to kill Hitler. Krotke wrote, "Nevertheless, such an action remains a venture. It cannot take cover beneath normalcy or claim to legal legitimacy. A person who takes this risk upon himself no longer has any security in this world. Such a person is completely thrown back on trusting in the God who in this extraordinary situation has moved the person to stand up against a horrible status quo." For Bonhoeffer, such a risk becomes possible only by placing it into the divine guidance of history. Olson notes that postmodern theology must be done in community. It cannot be an individual enterprise. Bonhoeffer produced a theology centered on engaging in community with those who are not subservient to the dictates or standards of the church. Engagement precedes indoctrination. In this way, Bonhoeffer's theological emphasis provides tremendous guidance for how the Christian of today can speak within the context of community with the non-Christian when she experiences poverty, educational indoctrination, racism, sexism, classism, or general despair. Likewise, the Christian can speak to the pain of one who is sick, grieving, loses a job, or has been unable to break the bonds of sensuality. The reality is, once theology exits the lecture hall and enters the town hall, the Christian, and thereby the gospel, will be welcomed to the table. Bonhoeffer writes, "Today we have villains and saints again in public view. That evil appears in the form of light, of beneficence, of faithfulness, of renewal, that it appears in the form of historical necessity, of social justice, is for the common sense observer a clear confirmation of its profound evilness." In other words, the ethicist cannot get out of his own way in trying to undermine the ethics of another man. This is very similar to the postmodern mindset, which often in its assertion refutes those very assertions. For example, to make the claim that there is no truth is in and of itself a truth claim. Therefore, by making the claim, one refutes the essence of that very same claim, and that whole proposition becomes meaningless. There is truth. And in Christianity, truth is not simply professed in an ethereal sense, but is also contained in a person. Jesus is the truth, and even the postmodern man must live within the realm of some certainties. Truth should always undergird those certainties, and Bonhoeffer provides a method through which even the most ardent skeptic can be introduced to the truth, which shatters his disbelief that the truth could ever be singular. Bonhoeffer illustrates this well in another sermon where he said, "Then it says again, but have not love, I am nothing. Insight, knowledge, truth with love is nothing. It is not even truth, for truth is God and God is love. So truth without love is a lie. It is nothing. Speaking the truth in love, says Paul in another letter. Truth just for oneself, truth spoken in enmity and hate is not truth but a lie. For truth brings us into God's presence, and God is love. Truth is either the clarity of love or it is nothing. May we all learn these lessons and learn how to not simply know Christ, but to make him known. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, peace.